As always, donate to Jumpstart. Jumpstart helps economically disadvantaged kids play team sports, which is something that's near and dear to Rachel and I's hearts. So if you go to the links in this description below, pretty much all the information that you will need to donate is there. So we really encourage you, if you can, to do so. Again, it's a great cause. We love Jumpstart. They are our charity of choice. If you can, please donate.
All right. Rachel, I'm pretty sure. Were you at the Raptors parade when they won?
I was,
back
yes.
in 2019? Yeah.
The very poorly planned parade that was supposed to be a dry run for the Leafs that very much was bad.
So I'm glad they did that. It was bad, so it showed what doesn't work. So when the parade happens this year, I'm glad that we're going to be. We know to essentially we know the different things that need to be done. We know not to crowd the route. We know potentially to do it up Yonge Street instead of University. There's so many different things, but I think regardless of that, it is almost a seeming fact now that there will be a parade in Toronto this year.
I loved on ESPN Arda Ocal, who's from Toronto. It was his birthday and everything. Literally came over to the desk with a piece of paper and started drawing the parade route on the live broadcast. I was like, 10 out of 10. No notes on that.
Should.
That was excellent.
Because as of recording, the Leafs are up 2-0 in their series against the Florida Panthers. And look, they haven't been like dominating wins. Like, they haven't blown them out. But these have been two very, very, so I would say, strong, confidence-inspiring wins. Obviously, they say you don't win a series until you win one on the road, type of thing. And that will be happening soon. At least like a road game will be happening soon. But this is why you get home ice advantage. This is why you don't coast
because you literally don't have to win on the road.
Exactly. But this is why you earn home ice advantage so you can get out to a start like this in a series. Because, we've seen many times before that the Leafs, they knew that they were going to be playing a certain opponent, so they just kind of coasted throughout, basically from like Valentine's Day, through the end of the season.
Which is why the divisional format is booty cheeks, but alas.
But here we are, and listen, there's some interesting things that are happening in this series, and I think we can use one of them to sort of go into a different topic, because Sam Bennett is enemy number one in Toronto.
Wait, there's nothing that's happened in the series so far, Mike. There's nothing has happened.
So 2023, the last time the Leafs made the second round.
What happened? We were there.
We were. Sam Bennett pulls a wrestling move on Matthew Nyes, and this is baby Matthew Nyes. This is Matthew Nyes right out of college. He played one or two regular season games.
2 games. It was like his 8th NHL game, at all.
And in the corner behind not in the corner, behind the net, Sam Bennett goes to hit him, and then instead of sort of rubbing off him and then going on with the rest of the play, grabs him by the neck and Randy Orton RKO's him into the ice and concusses him, and he doesn't end up being able to come back into that series. Obviously, the Leafs lose in 5, whatever. Last year,
I would just like to what's wild is that move, even if, and you could suspend it for intent to injure, because that's clearly what it was. At the very least, if you are going to drag someone to the ice by their head, it is at minimum a holding penalty.
Yeah, at minimum.
And there's no such thing as a holding major, which fine, but at a minimum, the barest of minimums, it's a holding penalty.
In that same series, front of the net, battling it out, Sam Bennett and Michael Bunting. Sam Bennett takes his stick, cross-checks Michael Bunting in the head. Michael Bunting goes down, continues to cross-check him. No call. Last year, Sam Bennett cross-checks, hits Brad Marchand in the head.
Straight suckered him.
Yeah, suckers him
Just
in the head.
Suckered him.
Gives him a concussion. No discipline. And then now this year,
we haven't even. Anthony Stolarz was not the first one this year. Did you forget what he did earlier this year?
In the regular season, I was talking about playoffs, but what happened?
Oh,
In the
I was going
regular
to say,
season?
did you forget about that thing that he did in the regular season?
I might have. I was just looking at playoffs, but
He
what do you mean?
ended Roman Yossi's year because he concussed him with a hit that was all over Twitter because people were like, how does he keep getting away with this? Roman Yossi hasn't played a
didn't know
game
that.
since Nashville played Florida. Yeah.
Was that like what, the
It's-
second last game of the season or something? Or
No, I want to say it was like early March. Like,
dang.
Yossi played, I'm going to look it up, and you continue with the Stolarz Bennett, but I just want to point out that, like, it's not even the first time this year that Sam Bennett has done something like this.
And then on top of that, as Pierre LeBrun liked to say, Sam Bennett introduced himself to the series with a little drive-by hit to the noggin of Anthony Stolarz, chicken-winged him forcefully in the head. Anthony Stolarz will not be traveling to Florida for games 3 and 4. He missed game 2. He could essentially have knocked him out of the series and honestly potentially the rest of the playoffs. With that, again, no discipline.
The concussion that Roman Yossi has is so bad that the hit occurred on February the 26th.
Really?
It is May now. Obviously, the regular season ended in middle of April. But if you miss a month and a half, nearly 2 months with a concussion, that's not like a oopsie. And he was given a minor boarding penalty. And I just watched the video of it, and yeah, minor penalty is being very kind about that.
Now I have some things that I some advice that I'd like to give our listeners. Whatever you do, don't look up who the NHL's sort of like director of on ice of operations is.
Senior Vice President of Hockey Operations.
Yeah. Don't look up who that is. And certainly don't look up who that person's
His
son
son
is.
is.
Certainly
where he works.
Certainly don't look up who he works for, and then certainly don't Google Colin Campbell email son. Definitely
definitely don't.
Whatever
do
you
that.
do, don't do that. Look, we give the Canucks a hard.
Also, can I add something to that?
Sure. Well, I was saying we give the Canucks a hard time on the show, but in 2011, when they were all coming out en masse saying,
John.
"Hey, like the NHL's office is literally biased against us," and we were all like, tinfoil hat, conspiracy, blah blah blah. No, they were right, man.
They were correct. Also, don't look up Colin Campbell, Mark Savard email.
Oh, and where does Mark Savard
Most
work?
certainly don't do that.
And don't look up where Mark Savard works and what team he works for this year.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No, don't do that. Okay, so can we have a broader conversation about this? Because
Sure.
it's most certainly not just Sam Bennett. He's just the poster boy right now because he somehow keeps getting away with it. And the reason he somehow keeps getting away with it, I'm going to say, is that the NHL does not take head injuries seriously. Would you agree with that assessment?
I think we have literal like emails from Colin Campbell saying that, like proving that basically.
So, Chris Nowinski is the preeminent concussion researcher, like, in the field. So much so, here's a fun little backstory. He had a groundbreaking piece of research come out in the summer of 2022.
Okay.
And I had just finished defending my thesis, and I had cited some of my paper. I had cited Dr. Nowinski in it because I was looking at injuries as well and whether or not they were predictive to NHL success. So I had cited him. So I was obviously following him, tracking his work, things like that. He came out with a study, and I, off the top of my head, can't remember what it was. And I just retweeted it, like no comment, nothing. I retweeted it because I was like, this is very, like, important. I got a call from NHL head office telling me I had to unretweet it and I wasn't allowed to make mention of or do anything publicly that supported this guy's work because of the CTE lawsuit and how it looks to have an NHL employee retweeting his work. And I said, I understand that, but let's be clear. The reason we're doing this is you're concerned about the CTE lawsuit and what this research means. And if people in your league believe that, you're telling them they're not allowed to. Just so we're on the same page. And that person said yes, and I said, okay, just to be clear, I very much believe this. You are not changing my mind. I won't say anything publicly about it, but I am also not the only NHL employee that believes that CTE is directly related to playing contact sports, specifically in the NHL. Just so we're on the same page. And so Dr. Nowinski tweeted out, Anthony Stolarz got hit in the face with like a 90-mile-an-hour shot. And that can cause a concussion on its own. 100%. It can. The likelihood of it is a lot smaller given the technology with goalie max, but it is a possibility and you can't rule it out. The way he was shaking his head after that, goalies have been pulled by concussion spotters for a lot less. And if the concussion spotter is not looking at the guy who just got hit in the head with a puck, my question to you, Mike, is what would they be looking at?
I don't know. It's to be like, obviously goalies shake their heads a lot like that. And I know it's an independent concussion spotter, but I also do think that there's no way that bias can't come into this. So because it's a playoff game, maybe if it was a regular season game, there would have been something different. But no matter what, like you can say it's impartial, you can say it's a third party or whatever. Like there will always be an underlying sort of like omerta to the game where they'll realize like, well, it's game one of this in Toronto. You can't pull the Leafs goalie for taking a shot to the face. Like,
but then he gets hit by Sam Bennett, and he's laying in the crease. It's not like he just continued on his merry way. And again, nothing. And it's like, okay, I understand what you're saying. Like you said, goalies get hit in the head all the time with shots. Maybe don't pull him there. But then when he's like laying on the ice and needs like a couple, like almost a minute to gather himself after being elbowed in the head, like, should that not have been like, okay, automatic, you need to go get looked at?
Mm-hmm. It took him removing himself, basically. I don't think he would have left if he didn't puke on the bench, because he puked. Like, you see it, and they had to get like a cleaning crew to come and like clean it up in the intermission because he went to the bench, he puked, and then he had to go to the hospital later that night for observation. And like, yeah, hockey players play through a lot of stuff, but like you can't trust a hockey player to take themselves out of a playoff game, especially if they're a goalie. Like, you cannot do it. They're not going to. It's just simple. Like, and Brandon
Hagel, I think, said it best. Also another guy who got concussed against Florida, might I add. Brandon Hagel said it best. He's like, I could play through like fingers and toes and knees and whatever. I only have one head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I understand the NHL being like, okay, we want a tough game, we want this, you want that. And you know what? You don't want to suspend a guy for kneeing, like, I'm going to disagree with it, but like, by all means. Hits to the head, though, could we like at least pretend to take it seriously? Like, just pretend to take it seriously. Because where I'm kind of at now is as the NHL is never going to admit that CTE is caused by playing there. And you know what? Even if the NHL never admits that, first of all, we all know they're wrong, but even if they never admit that, if they just quietly went to George Parros and said, hey, any hit to the head is an automatic suspension, we need to start sending a message, people maybe wouldn't be as hard on the NHL because they'd be like, okay, like they're clearly cracking down the way Brendan Shanahan was. And then people didn't like that, so all of a sudden he becomes a president of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we have the head of the Violent Gentlemen Club running the Department of Player Safety. That is literally like hiring the mafia to be the police department.
Hiring an arsonist as the head of the fire department. Like, it's ridiculous. And we say this over and over and over again. Here's the thing about George Parros, though, that because I think a lot of this, like, there's obviously the broader discussion, like you said, with the research and all that. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not gonna go into that. I think the fact that we have to even have research that comes out and says getting smacked in the noggin, is going
is bad.
Like getting smacked in the noggin repeatedly is linked to, like a brain injury or just straight up linked to a brain injury. I think the fact that we have to do that is insane. Like that's common knowledge. If you get hit in the head a bunch, it's going to damage your brain. Like that just like how stupid, you drop an egg, it's going to crack. Like it's the same thing. But the thing about George Peros is like, he's not stupid. He went to Princeton, like he's everyone likes to say.
No, he knows exactly what he's
exactly.
doing.
So a lot of people, like I saw, with Sam Bennett, like on Twitter and all that, when there was when it was released that there was no supplemental discipline, like the main thing to say is like, oh, George Peros is such a dumbass. He's not. He's smart, and that's honestly worse. I would rather him be stupid. Yeah. I would rather him be ignorant and stupid, because at least he can hide behind ignorance. At least we can go, oh, it's like a child who, like goes and spills a cup of water during dinner, right? Like they didn't know any better. So like how mad can you be at him? Like what's the intent? George Peros knows exactly what he's doing. He's crafting a game, and obviously he's working in tandem with the league and Cole and Campbell and all that, but he is crafting a game of like zero protection for players, and zero consistency. He's basically creating like a lawless game where he can pick and choose what he wants. Like the Leafs how long have the Leafs been considered a soft team? That's what everyone says. The Leafs are the softest team in the league. They have been ever since the Matthews era, where they load up on skill players. The Leafs have had the most, like in terms of games suspended, they are top 5 in the Matthews era of games suspended by players. Because like,
I just want to point out that if Nazem Kadri did what Sam Bennett did, regardless of whether he was wearing a Leaf uniform or a Flames uniform, he would be getting 5 games.
They would have nailed him to the cross like they did with Jesus. Like they literally would have crucified him. It was like if Nazem Kadri did that. And I love like the joke where it's just like Nazem Kadri will have a hearing with player safety for Sam Bennett's hit.
Elbowing.
Like it's they pick and choose, and like obviously they suspended Kadri again when he went to Colorado, but that was like almost an indefensible thing. Like when he chicken winged someone on the Blues the next year, or not Calgary, Colorado. But like, what's happened to him since then? He's not on the Leafs anymore, and I mean, obviously he's not as running around crazy as he was before, but like it's pretty noticeable. Like Jason Spezza hit someone in the head. He's in 19 years of NHL experience, had never been suspended. George Peros hits him with a 6-game suspension right off the bat. Morgan Rielly never had been suspended. Cross-checks a guy in the face, which, by the way, we have video evidence of Michael Bunting getting cross-checked in the face by Sam Bennett in front of the net.
Ryan Suter cross-checks dudes in the face
all the time.
Game-to-game basis.
Morgan Rielly gets 5 games. Morgan Rielly had never been suspended before, but he's a Leaf. Like, again, I don't want to be that tinfoil hat guy.
And my gripe isn't even Leaf related. My gripe is, as a league, you don't take head injuries seriously. You don't take injuries at all seriously, but like specifically, you don't take head injuries seriously, and it's not even from a suspension perspective. The concussion spotters clearly don't feel like they have the autonomy to be like, this guy needs to come out of the game.
When was the last like, I'm glad you brought that up, like concussion spotters. When was the last time you can remember someone getting pulled from a game by a concussion spotter? I genuinely can't. Like, I can't. If you told me, gun to my head, when was the last time a concussion spotter came out and pulled someone? I think we just don't
hear about it. I think it's like, oh, he's left the bench.
But, like...
Because I remember they pulled... It was in round 1. They pulled a player from the Lightning. It was the guy that Nico Mikkola crushed from behind that I was like, that's also a suspension, and he didn't get anything. I just can't remember who it is. It might have been Nick Paul, but I remember him being pulled from a game. You know what? And this is crazy. In the regular season, I remember it happening like pretty frequently. Like just, oh, guy's gonna go get looked at, whatever. To me, if you fight, you should automatically have to go get looked at. You were just bare knuckle boxing. You should have to go get looked at just in case, right?
For a concussion spotter, when they pull you, are you able, if you pass the concussion protocol, to go back in the game? Like, can you be pulled by a concussion spotter?
It's called the quiet room. That's
Yeah,
why when
but-
they say a guy goes to the quiet room.
Yeah, I knew that, but
my
I didn't
point
know
is,
if you were allowed to go back in.
Oh yeah, if you get cleared by the spotter, you're allowed to go back in. The thing about it is like I'm not even at the point where I'm like suspension this, suspension that. Could you just take head injuries like a little more seriously? Where it's like, okay, you know what? If you want to let egregious interference penalties and egregious hooking penalties and egregious tripping penalties go, fine. Right? The moment there is contact with the head, like, you gotta go. Like, the fact Aaron Ekblad was not given a 5-minute major and he got suspended for 2 playoff games, what are you doing? What are we doing?
What boggles my mind is, like, this is tangibly, like, could potentially end Anthony Stolar's season. We don't know. Like, the Leafs are not going to announce that he has a concussion, but he's not traveling, you know, like, and all that.
He also threw up for all of us to see.
Exactly.
Like, we know what it is. Just say it.
Not even 2 weeks ago, the Leafs were playing the Senators. We were warming up, and Nick Cousins gently grazed a puck in the direction of Anthony Stolarz, who is his friend.
And I've seen passes harder than what Nick Cousins did. Never mind shots. Passes that were harder.
Nick Cousins was fined $2,500, like the maximum allowable under the CBA. And the Ottawa Senators franchise, the organization, was fined $250,000 for that.
See,
You know, was it?
Can I point out
was
my
it Garnett?
current
Was it Garnett Hathaway spat on someone?
Yes.
And he got 3 games. Sam Bennett could have ended the Toronto Maple Leafs starting goaltender's season, and he got not a fine, nothing,
Not a hearing,
0, zilch. There is no consistency, and we should be taking head injuries a little more seriously than, you know, like curling a puck towards your friend before a game and spitting on somebody.
You know what the it's two. I'm gonna compare 2 off ice to 2 on ice, and both involve the Sens. You want to talk about the Sens being hard done by? I feel really bad for them.
They are. Their fans complain a lot, but they've definitely have been screwed.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you 2 examples. The Nick Cousins one is one, and then you watch Sam Bennett do the same thing to the same goaltender, right? Do something much worse, no penalty, and the Sens get fined. But you know what's even worse, Mike?
What?
The Ottawa Senators were stripped of a first-round pick because of the Evgeny Dadonov trade protection snafu. And the Chicago Blackhawks
that's not even what I
allowed
was
a
thinking.
sexual assault to occur in their organization and were not stripped of a draft pick. You tell me where your priorities are. Like, the Sens getting screwed over twice for less egregious transgressions, and while other teams get away scot-free, is a joke.
That's not even the one I was thinking of, where it's just like Shane Pinto let his friend use his betting account and got suspended for 41 games.
Yeah.
And Sam Bennett is out here concussing people on a
Now,
semi-annual.
I think that's like maybe apples to oranges, because like they see betting as like a different suspension. Like what I will say there is that's not Department of Player Safety, that's Bettman. So Bettman handles the conduct suspensions, and Parros handles on ice suspensions. Still bad.
Bettman, you know, here's the thing: a suspension goes to an arbitrator who makes the final ruling. Gary Bettman.
Yep.
He's the commissioner of the league. If he wanted to, he could step in on any suspension and say, this is what it's going to be. Like, he's not like, I'm the commissioner of the NHL. I want to take head injuries seriously, but man, like, George, it's George Parros' call. No. Like, that's not how it works.
He could fire him.
Exactly.
He could fire him. He's
himself
the commissioner of the National Hockey League.
He can name himself the
But
Department of Player Safety if he wants to.
Speaking of that, I was talking with somebody about the direction of the Department of Player Safety and how somebody who is the head of the Violent Gentlemen Club or anyone of that ilk shouldn't be anywhere near it. And that person was like, okay, who would you name? And or Mark Savard. And then we both came to an agreement on the guy that might be best for it.
Who?
Ryan Getzlaf. Because he's being groomed for management. He is an honest hockey player without suspension, but he played the game hard, and he would have an idea of the difference between like playing the game hard versus dirty play, because he was the victim of some pretty shitty hits.
So George Parros'
right?
friend?
No. Every single person in the Department of Player Safety is gone.
Well,
It's
like,
Ryan
they're friends. They
Getzlab.
played together. I on like.
But what I'm saying is like Getzlab is a more like he's more of the mold of the type of person you want as head of the department. Someone who understands a tough game, but also says there is a line. Like this would be like you can't make Tom Wilson the head of the Department of Player Safety when he retires. That's not a thing.
I like the idea, but I don't want the next person is Department of Player Safety. If they have even been on the same flight as George Parros, if they have eaten at the same restaurant at the same time as George Parros, if they have breathed the same air as George Parros, I don't want them anywhere near this department. Like he is. George Parros is such a.
I would love for it to be Paul Kariya.
George Parros is such a deeply incompetent human being. When it comes to doing what should be his job, which is making hockey safe, creating a safe environment for players, promoting player safety. You're the Department of Player Safety. It's crazy. But speaking of players not being safe, you're in Anaheim.
Let's have a chat, huh?
You're a young player. Do you feel protected by the fact that they just hired Joel Quenneville to be the head coach? And listen, we don't need to go into we don't need to give you the rundown of why Joel Quenneville was on the market.
If you listen to this show, you know
exactly.
The hiring Joel Quenneville on the backdrop of hockey culture being literally on trial in a London, Ontario courtroom right now for the very same crime that the Chicago Blackhawks covered up is a little on the nose, I would say. You can be... We said the same thing when Stan Bowman got hired. You can be comfortable with the work that they've done. You can do all the research you want. The reality of the situation is if hockey culture is in a good place, people who do this kind of thing do not get another chance.
I find that we tend to look at like people's place in hockey because things like this happen and people do despicable things and there are consequences for it, and then people go, what, should they just be tarred and feathered, just kicked out forever? And I go,
there's only 32 NHL coaching jobs. It's a privilege.
Exactly. And so I go, what? People seem to think that no one's born to coach. No one's born to be in the game. This is a professional hockey, and you earn the privilege of being paid millions of dollars to be the figurehead of $1 billion franchise. On the ice, to lead a group, to be in a management position. You're in a management position when you're a coach. You're everyone's boss. Not just the players' bosses, but everyone else who's in that locker room who's not you
on the coaching staff,
or the GM.
The training staff,
everyone. The video coaches, everything. It's not a privilege. It's not a right. It's a privilege. And so
we talk about hockey being you gotta earn. Hockey's a big old you gotta earn your stripes. You gotta do that. Okay, well, earn it.
So Joel Quenneville could do all the research in the world, and I hope he did because, first of all, they haven't said specifically what he's done. They hired him, and we've been getting the typical force PR PR money
same thing the Oilers
thing.
did.
Exactly, through Darren Dreger, he's like, oh, he did extensive research and learning and all that and blah, blah, blah. Always seems to be Dreger. Interesting. But that's all fine and dandy and whatever. But, you need, this is a time, first of all, he is accused of, and proven to have covered something up. So when it comes to, hiring him again, openness and transparency needs to be of paramount importance to that. Number one, and the
best thing the Ducks could have done is accompanied with the press release is an appendix of all of the courses, learning, whatever. Because I gotta be honest with you, not happy about it. But if it came with an appendix that said he took like these 10 things and like these people who have experience with victims of sexual assault or whoever are willing to vouch that he did the work, was an active participant, I am a hell of a lot more likely to be like, okay, I know he did the work. But this, I'm like, I don't know that he did, because I don't know what he did. And I'm like, if we're talking about taking the NHL at face value here, this is the same league that said CTE doesn't exist.
Even if Joel Quenneville rolled up his sleeves as a straight white man and somehow ended homophobia, or or like found a way to eradicate sexual assault from society, that doesn't erase his crimes. Like, that doesn't erase what he did. He ruined a man's life. Like, he and in the Jenner and Block report, which is out there, like I reported on extensively for a terrible publication back when this happened, and it's out there publicly. Like, they published it publicly. Like, starting at page 38 of that Jenner and Block report is what people knew. Like, Joel Quenneville knew. And not only did he know, he tried to cover it up. And then for Brad Aldrich, like the perpetrator here, he wrote a glowing recommendation to him to work at a youth in youth hockey, where he sexually assaulted a child. So like,
and was convicted.
And I don't care how much work this guy. Well, I do care how much work this guy's done, and I hope he does, because in society, I would like more people who have atoned for their crimes. But the second that he did that, the second that report was published, should have been the end of Joel Quenneville in professional hockey. You lost that privilege. There is not
right. And I was having this discussion with somebody about Joel Quenneville specifically. We don't have to like it, but the reality of the situation is, he is a Hall of Fame coach. He is going in the Hall of Fame for his accomplishments as a hockey coach. We don't have to like it. We don't have to agree with it. But we all know that that's happening. Because at the end of the day, he's one of the best hockey coaches of all time. When you start to include the other stuff, though, that is where we need to have a discussion about hockey culture as a whole. Because this happened over 10 years ago. Hockey Canada currently has 5 players standing trial facing legit prison time because they thought it was cool to have non-consensual group sex with the victim. And that's not even all. Last month, 2 former QMJHL players were sent to prison, like checked into prison for sexually assaulting somebody after winning the QMJHL championship. Then we have the Hockey Canada investigation about what happened in Nova Scotia in like 2003 or whatever year it was. Like, we're allowing way too many people back into the game, and it's clearly having a negative impact. So there almost needs to be like a one-strike policy. And I get it. If you get accidentally, like, roped into something, that's different. But if the Jenner and Block report comes out and we find out you were, like, involved to the level that Joel Quenneville was, it's a one-strike policy. You're out. You're done.
He should, like, the second that report was published and the findings were like, fully revealed, that should be the end of Joel Quenneville in professional hockey. But instead, here he is, getting a chance to hop on a team basically at the ground level of their contention window. Like,
and you know what's crazy?
He'll experience success with them, and he'll get lauded for it.
I don't think this is going to be like, remember when Babcock got hired in Columbus and we were like, how long till he gets fired? Mm-hmm. Like, we all knew, right? Because Babcock is an egomaniac, mm-hmm. right? With Quenneville, I actually think we're not going to be doing the timer of, like, how long. Because, like, I've met Joel a few times before any of this. I haven't dealt with him since. But, like, when I was working in the league, when, like, all of that was going on, I met him quite a few times. He at least in my interactions with him, he is somebody who would actually change that behavior. And heinous that he covered it up the first time, but in my conversations, my experience with him, he is somebody who's like, I won't let that happen again. Whereas Babcock's just like, I'm going to continue on my merry way doing whatever the hell I want, which nobody needs. Right? I'm not saying Quenneville should get a second chance, because I don't think he should. But I'm saying I think it's far less likely that we have like a quote-unquote repeat situation here. I think he would almost be hyper-vigilant about it now.
Yeah, he'll do everything he can to stay under the radar with this. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he chose to play in Anaheim, where they, like the media scrutiny is not as big as it is here. Like, you look at
You'd have to think the Rangers probably... Like,
the Rangers
not that
probably
James Dolan
kicked the tires
cares,
on it. The Rangers probably kicked the tire on it. I would bet Seattle probably kicked the tires on him. Like, pretty much any team with. I would bet the Flyers probably kicked the tires on him.
Because at the end of the day, if you remove
the Bruins,
all of it, and we know that guys do that, he is a good coach. And in hockey, and this is the culture problem, in hockey, that supersedes the rest of it. And that is why we are where we are. That is why we have people getting sentenced to prison, like, in everywhere. People being accused. We have the Mitchell Miller issues. We have the William White law has stuff surrounding him. I believe Lyndon Lakovic has it. There were a couple. Kai Uchaz got suspended like indefinitely in like his first or second year in the WHL for racism. All of a sudden gets drafted, and I'm like, what? What are we doing? You are not going to change the culture unless you say that's not a thing. Like, the thing that I am most petrified of is, let's say they get found not guilty in the Hockey Canada trial. To be clear, not guilty does not mean innocent. That is not what that means at all. And if you think it does, stop listening to this show. That's not what that means. I legitimately think that if they are found, like if they're acquitted, that at least one of them is going to get an NHL contract offer. And I think it's going to be up to Bettman to be like, no.
If they get acquitted.
I mean, Formanton's crap, so it doesn't matter. Calfoot also crap, doesn't matter.
Formanton's working construction.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
Like
It'll be Carter.
Yeah.
Like someone will try and bring him back. And here's the thing about that too is, in a court, the thing that sucks is that in a court of law, it's extremely difficult to convict. Like, just from an
But
from
the thing
a
that the
legal
NHL, the leg the NHL has to stand on is, now that the investigation will have been completed by that point, Bettman is allowed to use the lawsuit that was settled as evidence, because you're allowed to, Bettman for conduct, I'm going off the memory of the SPC, but the rules around conduct, which is if you do anything detrimental to the Shield, the brand of the National Hockey League, Bettman has the right to suspend you. Well, if they paid out a lawsuit for behavior that you did, he's allowed to suspend you for that. He's allowed to be like, you're done. And all he has to do is issue like a 5-year ban, and all their careers are done because they're our age. No one's signing them at 34.
Yeah, that's true.
But it is my fear that somebody would try and offer them. Like, you can rule out quite a few teams immediately who would be like, that's not a thing. And I do think there would be a few coaches that would be like, I don't want this guy anywhere near my team. There's a difference between like Tony D'Angelo and just being like annoying on Twitter and having interesting views and being an accused criminal. Like, there is a difference.
They acquit this, I will put it at like 6 months over under before the Edmonton Oilers offer Carter Hart a contract. And I could not be more serious. Like, it just, they love
it would be Stan Bowman too, by the way. Oh,
they gave a PTO to Jake Virtanen.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
Vander Kane is still on their team. Like, it's,
as a whole, hockey just has to do better. Like, just stop accepting this behavior. Like, I coach minor hockey. If I ever had a kid that even remotely spoke about women like this, was racist, homophobic, any of that, you're off the team. I'm not even thinking twice about it. You have to root out that behavior, and the only way you do it is by sending a strong message. And it should, frankly, start with the NHL.
Well, speaking of things that could happen in the future, I decided to boot up our time machine and do a fun thing here where we are going to, Rachel and I, we're going to step into a time machine. We're going to go into the future, and we're gonna grab every newspaper we can find, every blog we can find,
every new social media
let's say
headline
6 months in
platform,
the
because
future.
Twitter will hopefully be dead.
Exactly. Hopefully. And we're going to come back and we're going to read some of the headlines from the future. And I'm going to let Rachel start. And again, this doesn't have to just be hockey. Like maybe we grabbed the football section, or maybe we grabbed something else. But mainly I'd say it's hockey. But so we just got back from our time machine. We have the headlines of the future. Rachel, why don't you share your first one with us?
Toronto Maple Leafs Sam Bennett suspended for 5 games for punching opponent in the head.
I would have thought for sneezing on Tom Wilson or something, but that's good too. I can't believe that happened. I think that's a world. Do you really think they're going to sign him this offseason, or at least make a run at it? How much does Sam Bennett get paid?
I think he probably gets paid $8.5 or $9 million.
That's crazy, man. That guy's when it comes to actual point production.
Yeah, not great.
He's what, 60? He's a 60-point player. Then again, the cap's going to be $200 million in the next
exactly.
7 years. So who cares?
I also think Vancouver's going to take a healthy run at him, but yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. I'm rustling through my newspapers here, and I got it. And mine is kind of relates to my last point. It's breaking. This is actually a tweet from Darren Dreger. So this is great. Breaking. Edmonton Oilers in agreement with Kyle Rittenhouse on 2-year deal per sources. Space Rittenhouse has done extensive work on community safety.
Oh no! Jesus.
Obviously, Darren did not share what extensive work.
But the word was done.
Kyle Rittenhouse had done, but all we know is the work was done, and it's okay. Do I know if Kyle Rittenhouse has ever played hockey?
No, that's not really the point, though.
But I think his values really align with the Edmonton Oilers.
Goodness gracious, that took a dark turn very quickly. 5 years from now, this.
Oh, you went really in the. Oh my gosh! Okay.
5 years from now, actually, you want me to go 7 years from now? I'll go 7 years from now.
Okay, sure.
Mike is gonna shoot me through the screen for this.
Okay.
Newspaper article headline: After Austin Matthews signs a contract extension, it is followed with Mitch Marner looking to return to Maple Leafs for the richest contract in club history during pending unrestricted free agency.
I can see that.
You know that's coming.
Yeah.
He's leaving July 1st.
I can
He's
see
going to
that
sign
for
a
sure.
deal somewhere, and then 5 years from now, when Austin re-ups his deal, Mitch Marner there's going to be a newspaper article by someone who's besties with Darren Ferris.
Mm-hmm. Darren Dreger. There you go. That's a really good one. And obviously, like this one, we talked about it before. This one is, another 7 months, I'd say, into the future from now.
Okay.
And it goes, Jim Rutherford in brackets with quotes, because this is the headline. That golf round must have been real long. End quote. GM still unable to reach Captain Quinn Hughes for response.
Start of training camp, still can't contact your captain.
Yeah. Simply
Can we
can't.
continue on the Vancouver Canucks one? Because I have one and it's special.
Sure. Go for it.
5 years in the future, after not having a practice facility for 15 years, the Vancouver Canucks are rumored to be settling on a parcel of land in the Greater Vancouver area. Yeah.
Love
5 years from now, still searching for a parcel of land. Only team without a practice. Utah has a practice facility, Mike. The Arizona Coyotes had a practice facility.
That's hilarious. We're 29 years old now. So we didn't grow up in the 80s.
No.
But I do think have you ever seen the movie The Goonies?
Yes.
Yes. So my headline, this could be from tomorrow, was, in quotes, "It was a simple mistake," end quote. Senators Captain Brady Tkachuk offended after being misidentified as Sloth from 80s classic Goonies.
Oh, man.
Anyone listening, just Google who Sloth from the
Oh my
Goonies is
God,
for a picture, and you'll see the stunning resemblance.
And I feel like we need to finish with that one. That one was solid.
Oh, I have one last one.
Okay.
One last one. And it doesn't really make too much sense, but you know how newspaper people go. When they find a pun, they got to use it. So
James Myrtle.
This is from exactly. I know. I give him crap about it all the time. But this is from the first day of training camp. It's arriving, in quotations, arriving cold turkey. Matthews, Leafs captain, arrives at training camp with full head of hair.
I love that.
So Austin Matthews takes a off-season trip to Turkey and suddenly comes back with a hairline that is about an inch above his eyebrows. So those are our headlines from the future, where we stepped into the future and we came back and, hey, we could do this a couple more times. But I think it's good. You know, the time machine. There's no limit to how many times we can step into this time machine. And
No, this is Austin Powers. We can go whenever we want.
there you go. Exactly. So on that note, we will allow you to enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy, the prelude to the Leafs Stanley Cup parade in a couple months. And before we leave, Rachel, would you like to give our listeners anything to marinate on before they leave?
I still think the Panthers are going to win.
Okay, screw you. And we will end the show. So take care and don't listen to Rachel.